Hey, you guys, with me right now, I have a very interesting guest. His name is Ken Good. He is a, bond attorney and also a member, and I'm going to say this wrong, Ken, so please correct me. I just had this on my screen. You are a board member of the Professional Bondsmen of Texas, and I was approached to have you on because of the issue of no cash bail. And certainly as a bondsman, obviously no cash bail is not great for your industry, but that's not why it's a bad thing. So let's just get into all these kind of nuanced topics when it comes to bail. So welcome, Ken.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I would say the number one reason why no getting rid of cashless bail is because every other attempt at, trying these new theories of release have been fiascos. They have terrible failure to appear rates, and that has a significant impact on crime. Contrary to the talking points, contrary to the pseudoscience that the activists promote, I mean, it's just if people don't come to court, that causes backlogs in cases. The more backlogs you have, that puts pressure on courts to dismiss cases. And when they dismiss, criminals see that as a green light to commit more crime. And what do you know? They create more crime.
Yeah, and I feel like, I mean, obviously, I think we're coming out of the St. George Floyd of fentanyl fog that the justice system was in for quite some time. But the effects of it, I think, are going to be felt for a very long time. I don't even think about backlogs of cases and things like that. In Texas specifically, I'm in Houston. I don't know what part of Texas you're in. But I believe we did this no cash bail here in Houston, and it's been not great.
Well, that's a great personal testament, I would say. But I would say Texas, other than Houston, has really strengthened the bail system.
Mm.
According to the latest statistics from the Office of Court Administration, the private bail industry is in charge of between 80 and 86% of all releases in Texas. Harris County, Houston is the one outlier, and that's because of litigation that was filed at the height of all of the things that you've mentioned. In fact, it's a case called O'Donnell versus Harris County, and the politics of it are terrible. At the height of that case, it was cited all over the country as um, the most important case for criminal justice reform. But the problem is, over time, it was all proven wrong. I mean, you that case has now been reversed 7, 8, 9 times, and the Fifth Circuit en banc eventually ruled that it should have never been filed in federal court. So the ruling is it should have never even been filed, but Harris County entered into a settlement with the plaintiff's attorneys to give them everything they wanted, even though the judges were winning in the courts on appeals. So they gave them everything wanted, and even though the courts have ruled it should have never been filed, it should be set aside, the politicians refused to go back to the court to have the consent decree vacated. And so we now have the attorney general who's made a motion to intervene, and the briefing on that is ongoing right now. So I think that is yet to be determined what the end result is. But I will say that the consent decree is no longer in compliance with Texas law, so there's that whole argument. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on that. But I agree with you. We're coming out of the fog of the George Floyd influence on defunding the police because it's contrary to the science. There's all kinds of
Trust
academic
the science, Ken.
studies.
Trust the science.
Oh yeah, well the science says that when you reduce the police, shock of all shocks, crime goes up. But
As
the activists say if we decrease the police, we'll be safer. That's just an absolute lie.
well, and we can't not get into the racial politics of this. And this is where here's the rub for these activists. So obviously the crux of quote criminal justice reform was made on the idea that black people are just getting arrested willy-nilly for nothing and getting thrown into jail for 40, 50 years just because they're black. And so that whole shift that basically said let's release all these black criminals because they're in here for no good reason has been a really, the outcome of this has been horrific. in blue cities and blue states, especially blue cities and blue states. Red cities don't do that sort of nonsense. But even, I mean, the George Floyd effect of just releasing black criminals because they're black. I mean, we can talk about Arena Zaretz. I can never say that poor
Yeah. Mm.
girl's last name. But let's talk about that case
Well,
because
let me
it,
say that I think that you're hitting right on this on the point. You're hitting the nail on the head, I guess is the saying. But the point I would make is this is all political, and the reason why you know it's political is the very people that these activists say that they're helping, that racial group or those racial groups are the ones that get hurt the worst
yes.
as crime goes up. And
Mhm.
you know, it's intended to inflame, so it's, language that's intended to make people mad, so they come out and vote in larger numbers. But what it's just absolutely contrary to the truth. 50% of all murder victims in the United States are young black males.
Mhm.
By and large, the murderers of those murder victims are also young black males because we tend to commit crime in our same racial groups. Somehow, in this debate, we have decided to favor the young black murderer over the young black dead person. And we've turned it completely on our head. And the other area that we've just completely just gone bonkers on is we've reduced the number of we've pretty much eliminated mental institutions in this country. As a result, our prisons and our jails are the largest mental health facilities in the United States. But during this criminal justice reform, suddenly, if you claim mental health problems, that's the king X to have your criminal case dismissed. And the Arena example that you mentioned, that's the crux of that. Here's a guy who's been arrested so many times, he's even been to prison, but we're now in this period of time where claims of mental health King's X the criminal case. And since we have no mental health facilities to send them to, because we've gotten rid of them except for in our criminal justice facilities, they just released them. No wonder we don't have more of that. And you know what? I believe we do have a lot of that, and we're ignoring it, and we're not hearing about it in the news because nobody wants you to know.
Well, nobody wants you to know because it's an inconvenient political truth.
Well,
And
there's no contingency to argue for mental health. I mean, the reason why they were closed is because there were class action lawsuits all over the country on because they were not funded, people were not being treated properly. I mean, they were had examples of people starving to death because anytime they cut their budget, they would cut the mental health institute's budget because there's nobody arguing for them.
so, I mean, this is such a multi-layered thing, and President Trump has said we need to bring back, asylums, which I agree with. I mean, we can certainly have new asylums that are more humane and, treat people with dignity as opposed to what basically got asylum shut down in the first place. In the age of social media, I don't think that would fly,
Look,
but
the answer for that though, if you and I could come up with an answer for the mental health problem in this country in the criminal justice, we'd be billionaires. We wouldn't be millionaires, we'd be billionaires. And that is a solution that has evaded our country for a long, long time. And it's going to continue to because there's not a simple solution for that. And, you know, from my personal family experience, your best chance if you have a mental health problem in my book is family and getting the family involved. You can't ask the government to step in and solve that problem. It's too difficult. And so I think that's the problem that we're missing is the solution to is getting family involvement. And it's hard. It's tough. I can tell you from personal experience, you know, when someone is in the middle of a crisis, they can run off everybody in the family. And you can have nothing to do with them for years. But hopefully with your Christian faith and as you get older, you're willing to give it one more shot. And which is what I did. And I ended up having my sister declared incompetent. And she was in assisted living facility where they were able to monitor her medications, and she probably ended up with the best 4 or 5 years of her life, and she was the cruise director of the assisted living facility. That
yeah,
wouldn't have happened. She would have died years earlier except for family involvement.
well, and the murderer of Arena who shouted, "I got that white girl," but
Yeah.
we're not supposed to think there's any racial, uh, thing to this one. The whole world would have been on fire had the races been reversed, and we think
Yeah.
I think we all know that. The family of this man has said, he's schizophrenic. We've begged people to keep him in
Yeah.
jail. We've begged people to help
His
him.
mother said he should have been in jail. He should not have been
Yeah,
released.
yeah. So I mean, there's family issues, there's societal issues, there's money that's allocated for things that shouldn't be allocated for, like, we're ending the DEI nonsense. But if we need to build more facilities, I think to help the homeless issue, to help the mental health crisis, and a lot of these people are addicted to drugs. So I mean, it's such a multifaceted thing, but certainly taking away bail or cash bail, if we could reinstitute that little, I don't know, common sense thing, I think
Mhm.
certainly keep these people locked up for longer and keep
Well,
the
but
rest.
we need accountability. I mean, it's just the first step towards accountability. We know how to decrease crime. I mean, Trump has shown this every step of the way. We know how to keep the country safe by closing the borders. We were told we couldn't do it. We just needed a new bill that was going to turn it on its head. And shock of all shocks, we didn't need a new bill. We need a new president. Same thing with crime. We know how to fight crime, and President Trump has shown that in Washington, D.C. What do you know? We just need to implement what works and crime will go down.
The crime will go down. All right,
That
Ken.
happens all over the place. And, implementation of accountability requires that to get rid of this simple release mechanisms where they're only giving their promise they're going to show up, where we now know they won't. And you can't resolve their criminal case if they don't come back.
It's like the illegals. I promise you'll show up and
Mhm.
sign a paper and that'll work out. Um, Ken, we could talk about this for a very long time, but time is short. So tell everyone how to follow you
Sure.
and find out what you're doing.
If you want more information about our organization, you can go to pbtx.com. Pbtx.com. We have a blog where we highlight important criminal justice stories online. We also have our own podcast, which there's a link on our menu, or you can just go to thebellpost.com. All we talk about is criminal justice issues, what works, what does not work, criticize, respond to the criticisms. Like right now, President Trump has issued an executive order on advocating the end of cashless bail. So you're seeing activists across the country issue these stories and these editorials that says that, this it's without facts. It's all just activism, pseudoscience. And so if you want to know the truth, go to thebellpost.com.
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. But, I think common sense is making a quite a ferocious comeback. So, activists can be activists and we'll live in reality. Thank you for joining me today, Ken, and I hope you'll come back.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. We'll be right back.